we're going to talk about, the show that opens in September. And this is a whole new body of work that is quite spectacular. The beauty of the human face and the man-made beauty of technical devices, in particular those of optometry, seem to be a marriage of ideas from which you start your creative process. Is that true?
I couldn't say it's exactly true. I understand that I am drawn to optical devices, scientific instruments. I have a long history down that path as a dealer as well as a maker. But I don't bring that into the process that I'm doing. People tell me that the work looks like me, and I think basically they're related to my glasses. I mean, the work doesn't actually look like me. I do help their self-portraits in that I'm trying to reveal myself in my work. But there's absolutely no conscious attempt to make it like the way I look.
So does the image start with your flea market pursuits? Would you say?
Certainly at this point in my making, that's not the case. And the flea markets have sort of, the antique materials have sort of drifted into the background. In the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 pieces that I've made haven't had any of those old things that I used to favor in the work.
Yeah, I do notice that.
I'm getting my materials much more from the internet now than I am from. It's where I get practically everything.
Tell me a bit more about your preconscious or intuitive process.
Well, of course, it's hard to speak about my preconscious because it's preconscious. Right. But it is, my conscious attempt is to reveal my preconscious. By definition, a hard thing to discuss because I don't know what it's about. Yeah. It's hidden from me as well as from, I don't know, my audience is probably a better judge of what I'm doing in those terms than I am. I relinquish that really happily.
Do you have a preconceived notion of how you want the head formed, or does it evolve?
It evolves under my fingertips when I'm working.
Yeah.
But I do have a preconceived notion in as much as just looking over my work, which I'm inclined to do, I see I do tend to work in series.
Yes.
I begin and I evolve and then I stop. But again, back to the pre-consciousness, I don't know why exactly why I stop. I get the message and I stop and I go on to something else.
Is the seeking out of old antique devices important to you in terms of your creative process?
I suppose it is. I like looking at stuff, especially old stuff. I love picking flea markets and antique shows and antique shops. I've been doing it for, good grief.
Long time.
Yeah, 50 years.
It seems the color of money is very prominent in the sculpture, gold and silver.
It's a Japanese, certainly Asian connection where flaws in material are covered with gold. I'm pretty timorous with colors, and my palette is severely limited by all the colors that, not all the colors, but most of the colors that appear in my work are coming from metal leaf, either gold, silver, brass, copper, combination of any of them, patinated, unpatinated. But, I mean, compared to a painter who has a palette and can go anywhere he wants, I've got a half dozen possibilities. That's enough for me.
But when you need to add that real punch, you know, you really use it. like that sculpture. I think the one that we're going to show has the red and blue in the back. I mean, it's there. And,
I understand it's there, but
yeah.
it's back to pre-consciousness. I look at it after I've done it, and I make a judgment about whether I like it or not.
Yeah. Are the technical devices meant to approximate the natural features of the visage?
The only thing that I use that I see as a real technical device are the specs, the eyeglasses.
Yes.
That are actually scientific instruments
Right.
They're measuring instruments rather
Right.
than actual eyeglasses, but they automatically frame the eye.
Yeah, exactly.
So
These sculptures are a merging, morphing of the human body and technical elements. Since we live in a society where people are merging themselves more and more with their technology, Bluetooth, Google Glass, and so forth, are these sculptures a form of social commentary?
it's a path that I never walked down, but I like the way it sounds.
Yeah.
Perhaps they are, but again,
Yeah.
if they are, it's coming from my pre-consciousness. It's not something I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But I like the notion of having done it.
It seems like there are overtones of a checkerboard on the green and gold head. Is that the game of life or artistic license?
I have a strong affinity to Masons and Oddfellows.
Yeah.
Not to the guys themselves or their philosophy, but their iconography.
Right.
The checkerboards is something that are used consistently by the Masons and the Oddfellows.
So there.
And
yes.
it's hard for me to get beyond. I really like the way it looks, and that's why I apply it. I apply it on the base of a lot of things.
Are these representations of your ideal of beauty?
I used to think that beauty was something not worthwhile achieving, although I sure like taking it in with my eyes. But it seemed like it was something too easy. But then when I tried making beautiful objects, which I do try to make beautiful objects, the beauty part seems to be evasive and really, really hard to latch onto. I want my objects to be beautiful.
I think you succeed.
Well, I hope I do.
I think you do. The elements that are menacing, is that a negative element in your work?
I don't quite understand what a negative element in my work would be. So, do I like things to be scary and a little horrifying? Yeah, I like the push-pull of regarding an accident on the highway that when you pass a crash on the freeway, your eyes, you don't want to look at it, but you can't avert your eyes. That's an aspect of things in general that I like a lot.
What about the Amarna heads is it that caught your attention?
There was a show at the Metropolitan Museum, seems like a couple of years ago, but it could have been a couple of decades ago, where they recreated the Amarna studio of the sculptor Tutmos, who was the sculptor of the Amarna heads. They found a handful of them, and they're just, I think they found 4 or 5 of them in his studio. They're sublimely beautiful in a way that's very, very difficult to analyze, because the backs of their heads are enlarged and swollen in a way that enlarged and swollen sort of sounds horrible, but they're not. They just take in a huge amount of beauty
Elegance.
and mystery.
And sort of regal
Well, so
quality too.
I mean, I do look for models,
Yeah.
but that's the model that I took in. I modeled all of my drawings and most of my sculptures after the Amarna heads.
Mm-hmm.
No one quite knows whether the Amarna heads were an actual thing that Egyptians used to form heads so that they conformed to their notion of beauty, the way that bound feet, for instance, did in China, or they were just a stylistic sculpturing attitude.
How much does your background and the history of your family and your childhood influence your creative process?
There was not a lot of early training for the direction that my life took in my early life. Mm-hmm. This all happened when I started college.
I see.
That I was drawn to that.
Yeah.
I think I was drawn to it a lot earlier than that, but I didn't understand. I was allowed to release this when I started college.
How much of a factor does the photographing of the work have on the total creative process? Mm-hmm. Or do you just take a final photograph when you are finished?
Photographing my work, and as I'm in the process of making it, gives me access to a level of removal where I feel I can see what I'm doing a little more objectively.
This work all references sight. Has its creation been an exercise in introspection and search for knowledge?
Introspection, certainly, and I guess introspection and search for knowledge is pretty much the same thing. There's a little question mark in there, but it seems to me that it is. It's knowledge about myself.
Yeah.
How far off that peg I could ever come is an interesting question, and I think the answer is not very.
Do the two-dimensional drawings have a bearing on the three-dimensional work?
I started drawing as basically a schematic, but ultimately it ended up as an exercise, basically saying goodbye to the sculpture that I had just made, and just
fait accompli.
Yeah, just get on with the next one.
Please talk about the reflective components of your work, Harris.
The reflective globe in the center of these heads contain, of course, a image of the viewer, you, when you're looking at the head. And when the heads revolve on the turntable, the central image remains constant. Everything else changes, but you remain the same, as if you're in the center of the sculpture looking out, something that doesn't exist in real life. Again, it wasn't my intention, but wow, I was knocked out by the discovery.
Well, I think lots of people who see this show are going to be knocked out by it. And thank you for having the exhibition with me.
I'm looking forward to this.
The show is, believe me, dynamite. It starts on September 6th, and it runs through October 11th.
Let's give them hell, Louise.